Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join this webinar this afternoon. My name is Nicole and I'll be delivering today's webinar called Transitioning from AOBRDs to ELDs. Today is the ELD mandate deadline. We're hosting this webinar to prepare you for this new way of logging. We're going to be sharing the difference between AOBRDs and ELDs and why you might want to consider staying on AOBRDs. As well as what you can expect once you do transition to ELDs. Before we get started, I just want to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We'll be recording today's webinar and posting the video onto the BigRoad blog. You can visit our blog at blog.bigroad.com, and you'll find recaps here of all of our previous webinars, as well as information on what's happening in the industry, including new rules, regulation changes, and ELD mandate news. We post new content here twice a week. It's a great source for industry news and an easy way to keep yourselves up to date. If you've submitted questions with your webinar registration, I've done my best to answer them throughout the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can enter them into the question box located on the GoToWebinar control panel. The question box is located on the lower right side of the window, and at the end of the webinar, I'll open the floor to a Q&A session, during which time I'll answer all of the questions submitted by you. We do get a lot of questions during our webinars, so I apologize in advance if I'm not able to answer them straight away. Along with the webinar recording, I'll also post a recap of all of the questions that were asked and provide more detailed answers with links to any relevant content to help you out. Then tomorrow, you'll be sent a follow-up email with a link to the recording and answers to the questions. So feel free to share this with anyone who might have questions about the ELD mandate and transitioning from AOBRDs to ELDs. Okay, let's get started. Here's what we're going to cover in today's webinar. First, I'll tell you which device you need to make sure that you are running in compliance with the ELD mandate. I'll review the automatic onboard recording device, or AOBRD grandfather clause, and what that means for you. Then we'll go over the benefits of using AOBRDs and why it might be in your best interest to keep using them for a little while longer. Then we'll go over the key differences that you can expect to see once you transition to electronic logging devices, or ELDs. And then we'll review some necessary materials that you'll need once you're using an ELD and show you where you can find some additional resources to ensure a smooth transition. And finally, I'll tell you about BigRoad's solution to the ELD mandate for those of you who are still in need of a compliance solution. So the ELD mandate was announced in December 2015 and finalized in February of 2016. Today is the compliance deadline, which means that all non-exempt commercial motor vehicles need to have a compliance solution now, either an AOBRD or an ELD. There is some misinformation floating around out there about what it means to be compliant. I just want to clarify that under the ELD mandate, the FMCSA specifies that you need an FMCSA registered engine-connected device in order to be considered compliant. This means that just an electronic logbook app alone is not enough to be compliant. For those of you using just the BigRoad mobile app electronic logbook to track your hours of service by itself, you'll need an engine-connected hardware like BigRoad's DashLink running as an AOBRD or an ELD in order to be compliant with the mandate. There's also some confusion over the April 1st, 2018 extension deadline that I want to help clear up. The ELD mandate compliance deadline has not been delayed until April 1st, 2018. The FMCSA is implementing a phased-in approach to achieving compliance, meaning that from now until April 1st, officers will not be issuing drivers out-of-service citations for not having ELDs installed. Violations are also not going to count against your CSA score during this transition period. However, you can still be fined for not having an ELD, and although those fines haven't been published yet, we're hearing that they could be about $500, which is pretty hefty considering our solution is $234 per year for an owner-operator or $300 per year per truck and part of a larger fleet. Doesn't really seem worth the risk. Additionally, any fines issued by the officer are up to their discretion, meaning that if you're not running an ELD and the officer finds other issues with you or your vehicle, that you could be in for a huge fine or even being put out of service for another issue. If you haven't gotten a solution in place, I can guarantee that the officer is going to be looking at your vehicle much more closely than somebody who is running one. So how do you achieve compliance and avoid a hefty fine? So again, you'll need an engine-connected ELD or AOBRD in your vehicle now in order to avoid that fine during roadside or a more intensive on-location audit. Automatic onboard recording devices, or AOBRDs, are being grandfathered in until December 16, 2019 as part of the ELD mandate. And this means that they can be used as a temporary compliance solution for the next 2 years. I'm going to explain this further in the next slide. So there are a few different terms for engine connected devices, and the reason for this is that there were a few iterations of this before, of this upcoming mandate before it became finalized. The one that you'll hear most often is ELD, and depending on how long you've been in the industry, you're also probably pretty familiar with AOBRDs. An ELD, or an electronic locking device, is a piece of hardware that is plugged into a vehicle's ECM, and when it plugs in, the ELD automatically records the information from the engine to record the driver's hours of service and other vehicle information. This is the most current term for engine-connected locking devices, and it's the one being mandated by the FMCSA. AOBRDs, or automatic onboard recording devices, have been around since 1988, when the FMCSA defined them as an electric, electronic, electromechanical, or mechanical device that connects to a vehicle's engine to automatically and accurately record a driver's duty status. Like an ELD, an AOBRD must be integrally synchronized with specific operations of the commercial motor vehicle in which it is installed. Under the ELD mandate, both devices will help you run in compliance under the mandate. Also under the mandate is the AOBRD grandfathered extensions. So if you had an AOBRD installed before today, you can grandfather it in, which means that you're allowed to continue to use it for an additional 2 years, which would take you to December 16th, 2019. After this date, you will need to transition to a fully compliant ELD. If you're running an AOBRD, you can transition to ELD before the December 16th, 2019 date, but we recommend you continue running it as it is for as long as possible. If you buy and install a new device today and beyond, it must be an ELD. You cannot purchase or install an ELD anymore. So BigRoad's DashLink is both an AOBRD and an ELD. If you purchase and install it before today, then you're running it as an AOBRD, and you can continue to run it as an AOBRD for 2 more years before going fully compliant. You don't need to do anything. If you want to keep running with an AOBRD, you just keep driving. If you purchased and installed it before today, you also now have the ability to turn on ELD functionality. You can turn on ELD functionality anytime between now and December 16th, 2019. It's completely up to you. When you want to do this, it's done with a simple change to the BigRoad web app. You do not need to purchase new hardware, and there are no additional fees. Turning on ELD is done on a truck-by-truck basis within your fleet. Once you turn ELD on for a vehicle, it cannot be changed back to ELOG or AOBRD, so you should be ready to transition to ELD before you do so. If you purchase today or later, your DashLink is considered an ELD, and you must follow the ELD compliance rules and requirements. With BigRoad, you've got a couple of options for how you're going to run in compliance for the next few years. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the pros and cons of the options to help you decide what's right for your fleet. So I mentioned that we recommend you stay on AOBRDs for as long as possible, and for good reason. 5 reasons why we recommend staying on AOBRDs for as long as possible are first, the history. So AOBRDs have been around since 1988. We've had ours since 2012 and have continued to build upon it to ensure that it's the best on the market. The next one is flexibility. So AOBRDs offer more flexibility than ELDs, allowing you more freedom in logging and editing. With an AOBRD, there are still some edits that you can make on your logs. Next one is visibility. With an AOBRD, there's less logging information recorded and displayed to an inspecting officer, allowing you to have a little bit more privacy in your daily operations. Next is familiarity. So because they've been around so long, law enforcement officials are more familiar with the technology, which means for you, smoother inspections and getting you or your drivers back on the road faster. And finally, time to get comfortable and a little less information recorded and displayed. So when you make an edit in an AOBRD, it is not visible to an inspecting officer at roadside. Anything that you do in an ELD will be visible. So AOBRDs will give you a little bit of time to get comfortable. They're generally just less regulated, so there's less interference from law enforcement in your daily operations. So it's a great stepping stone between paper logs and ELDs. You'll just have a little bit more time to get comfortable with engine-connected logging before you have to jump straight into an ELD. So in the next few slides, I'm going to take a closer look at what an AOBRD allows you to do and why it's in your best interest to keep using it for as long as possible. So a lot of you are going to want to know what's available to edit and what isn't in an AOBRD versus an ELD. With an AOBRD, there's a lot more editability than there is with an ELD. So drive time is one of those things that's actually pretty firm in both. With an AOBRD, you can't edit drive time unless the driving was done in error. With an ELD, you can't edit it at all. With an AOBRD, you can still edit your vehicle location and you can change an event. So you can you can adjust your duty status from on duty to off, from on duty driving to personal conveyance or yard move. And with an ELD, you can't change anything that's been automatically recorded. From the web application, there are very few limited edits that you or an administrator will be able to make, but they will need to be annotated, and the note is displayed to inspecting officers. For example, you can change your status from off-duty to on-duty driving with a note that explains that you logged training time incorrectly as off-duty. The edit and annotation will need to be verified by the driver inside the mobile app. And the edit is not accepted until you or your driver confirm it from the mobile app and then resubmit the record of duty status. Other than those limited edits that you're able to make, once an event has been recorded, it's virtually set in stone. So it's a great reason to stick with an AOBRD for a little while longer. Again, it's a bit of a stepping stone to get you into connected logging. So that brings us to the next point. If you make an edit, how is that recorded and who can see it? So with an AOBRD, the device will record who made the edit and when, but it won't readily display the edit history. Detailed history is also not displayed during a roadside inspection. An ELD, on the other hand, will record the same information and more, and that information will be readily displayed to officers during inspections. This makes it easier for them to spot false information. I'll show you an example of what each of these logs will look like to a DOT officer shortly. Not only do AOBRDs offer more editability than ELDs, they also display a great deal less information. This means that DOT officers won't be able to see as much of what you're doing or what your drivers are doing during the day when you use an AOBRD. Something that you'll also want to consider when you're making the choice to transition or not is that DOT officers are very comfortable with AOBRDs and the way that they display the data because they have been around since 1988, as I mentioned. However, they are still pretty unfamiliar with ELDs, so they won't be as rehearsed during inspections with them. This means that until they're more familiar, this might take some time. Inspections will go more smoothly when you use an AOBRD, which again will get you or your drivers back on the road faster. And actually, drivers who use BigRoad's DashLink report smoother inspections when enforcement officials see that they're using BigRoad's compliance solutions. Inspectors even comment on how much they love BigRoad because it's easy for them to use too. So a question that we get a lot is how do personal conveyance and yard move differ when you're using an AOBRD versus when you use an ELD? So if you haven't heard these terms before, I'll explain them. Personal conveyance is when a driver uses their commercial motor vehicle when they are unladen for personal use. It's dealt with similarly in both AOBRDs and ELDs. Drivers are considered to be off-duty in both. However, the difference is in how specifically your location data and other vehicle information is recorded during this time. Every vehicle event, both on-duty and off, is recorded and displayed in an ELD. An AOBRD does not display this information except to say that you have changed your status to personal conveyance and the location of the vehicle. Yard move is there for those instances where you are parked in a yard and asked to move your vehicle. So you just need to move to accommodate another driver, or you're making a small move in a shipping yard. You need a little bit of space, but you're not really driving. Yard move allows you to move your vehicle a short distance with BigRoad that's 5 miles at a time with no maximum speed. You're able to use multiple instances of yard move if you require it. But when you're running an ELD, you will need to be put into on duty in order to use this function. However, with an AOBRD, you are able to use yard move without it affecting your hours of service. So it's another bonus of sticking with an AOBRD for as long as possible. Another example of how much more restrictive an ELD is than an AOBRD is the way they deal with duty status changes. An ELD is much more automated than an AOBRD, which also means that there is much less flexibility. For example, with an ELD, if a driver's vehicle is stopped moving for 5 consecutive minutes and the driver has not responded to a prompt within 60 seconds, their status will be automatically changed to on duty not driving, whereas AOBRDs are not required to change your driver's duty status when the vehicle is no longer in motion. AOBRDs record a vehicle's location at the change of each duty status. There is no specification on how accurate the location has to be, and it has to be, or it can be, manually entered by the driver. With an ELD, the location needs to be automatically recorded anytime there is a change in duty status, as well as every 60 minutes while driving, when the engine is turned on or off, and at the start or end of yard move or personal conveyance. The accuracy must be within 1 mile while driving on duty for ELDs, or within 10 miles in personal conveyance mode in order to offer drivers some privacy. So it'll be tracked to the nearest town or city rather than the precise GPS location. As you can see, it makes a lot of sense to hang on to your AOBRD for a little while longer. However, if you or your fleet is planning on transitioning to ELDs now, there are some key differences that you'll see. Remember that if you're installing a compliant solution from today onward, it needs to run as an ELD. So I mentioned that AOBRDs allow drive time to be edited when they're attributed to the wrong driver, offering drivers and fleets some flexibility as they get accustomed to engine-connected logging. But ELDs do not automatically record events, do not allow automatically recorded events like drive times to be edited. They can only be annotated. While all edits made on AOBRDs are recorded, they are not readily displayed to a DOT officer during inspections. Electronic logging devices not only record who made an edit and when, but all edits need an annotation. An ELD will keep a copy of the original unedited log and a copy of the annotated log. Plus, all edits will be visible to DOT inspectors, including both logs during roadside inspections. A big difference that you'll notice when you transition over is that the ELD mandate requires that all electronic logging devices call attention to unidentified driving. Even if a mechanic fixes a part and test drives the truck, it must be recorded and annotated. In fact, an ELD will alert you or your driver about the unidentified driving the moment they sign into the device. This is done to ensure that all driver logs are accurate. An administrator can assign this driving time to a driver, but that driver will need to accept it and sign off on it before it is added to their logs. And another thing that you'll see when you start using your devices in the ELD is that if a truck has stopped moving for 5 consecutive minutes and the driver has not responded to a prompt within 60 seconds, the ELD must switch the driver's duty status to on duty, not driving. One of the biggest and most obvious differences will be how your daily logs will look when you use an AOBRD versus what they'll look like when you start using an ELD. So if you're currently using an AOBRD, you'll be familiar with what your daily logs look like. But here's an example of a driver's logs with an AOBRD. So this is what's going to be visible to an inspecting officer. In the log header, you'll see the driver, carrier, trailer, and shipment information. Then there's your duty graph, followed by your duty status events, including time, location, duration, and status. In contrast, this is what the same day of logs will look like with an ELD. So the log header and duty graph will look the same, but as you can see, there are a great deal more events recorded and displayed. So you can see under the duty graph that an ELD records and displays not only your duty status changes, but also the ELD status, CMV status, and each intermediate event. So every hour, the time and location of your vehicle is recorded. Sorry. If they are present, ELDs will also show a list of diagnostic events and malfunctions as part of your daily logs. As you can see, the detail of each event is also expanded. So under an ELD, each event will include the time, type of event, vehicle location, odometer reading, engine hours, and event origin. So whether it was automatically recorded or manually entered by the driver. Once you're running with an electronic logging device or ELD, there are some specific materials that the FMCSA requires you to have access to in your vehicle to make sure your inspection runs smoothly if you're pulled over. To make this easy for you, we've created a web page with all of these materials at www.bigroad.com/resources/ELDs-materials, and that web address is up on the screen there, so you can take it down. We'll also send you a link to that page in the email that's going to go out tomorrow. So we'll go over what materials the FMCSA requires in the next few slides. So first is an inspection guide for your specific ELD. So this guide gives you and the inspecting officer detailed instructions on how to complete an inspection using your ELD. When you're driving, you must have access to this as either a digital or paper copy. For the driver, this guide walks you through how to email, fax, or print your logs for the officer and how to prepare the BigRoad mobile app for an on-screen inspection. For the inspecting officer, this guide provides step-by-step directions on how to perform an on-screen inspection using the BigRoad mobile app. If you are pulled over for an inspection, show the officer this card if they ask you how to inspect your logs on the BigRoad mobile app. So the next thing is a malfunction guide. This guide gives you instructions on what to do if your ELD isn't working properly. It includes a step-by-step list of what you need to do in the event of a malfunction and how you can record your logs during this time. It's required that you have this guide on hand in either paper or digital format. With BigRoad, the inspection and malfunction guides are on the same piece of paper. This is called your ELD driver card. This way it's easier for you and you don't have to keep track of the extra paperwork. You can download your driver card or request a laminated copy from the ELD materials webpage in the resource section of our website. So next is your ELD user manual. So this manual gives you detailed instructions about how to use your ELD. If you ever need to know how to use a feature, you can refer to the user manual for instructions. Our user manual is available online through the BigRoad mobile and through the BigRoad mobile app so that you can access it right from your truck. You're not required to have a printed copy in your truck, but it's useful to print one out just in case. In case your ELD malfunctions and it's not a quick fix, the FMCSA requires you to have 8 days of blank paper logs, or 14 if you drive in Canada. This way you can record your hours of service on paper if you still need to run in compliance. BigRoad has a lot of resources available to make sure you have everything you need to get up and running with ELDs. In addition to the ELD materials page, our resources portal also contains dozens of training videos and one-pager information sheets to help you navigate our compliance tools. We host weekly live training webinars with an open Q&A session for our customers to enable them to successfully run in compliance. We also host regular informational webinars on industry news and compliance topics. Once you're signed up with BigRoad, we have a world-class in-house customer support team that's able to help you 24/7 to assist you with any technical questions that you have. We also have a great training and account management team to make sure that you have everything you need to manage your compliance. Okay, so we've covered a lot of information, and now if you already have AOBRDs installed, it's up to you to decide when to transition you and your fleet to ELDs. If you don't have a solution in place yet, you'll need to run as an ELD, and it's time to choose the solution that meets your unique needs. BigRoad was recently named the #1 ELD provider in North America because of the value we deliver to our customers who are part of fleets of all sizes. Before we dive into questions, I just want to briefly talk to you about BigRoad's solutions to the ELD mandate. So the BigRoad mobile app is our electronic logbook and hours of service management application. And this was the first product that BigRoad offered to the market. It was actually one of, if not the first, electronic logbook applications available. The BigRoad mobile app is used to replace paper logbooks. It's completely free for you to use. Drivers and fleets love the BigRoad mobile app because it takes the guesswork out of logging and managing your hours of service. It enables you to create clean, inspectable, and error-free logs in just a few taps. We always hear how much drivers enjoy the app because it makes their jobs easier. They don't need to worry about wrong calculations, running over their hours, or getting a violation for something that's easily avoidable. Plus, it's very driver-friendly and easy to use. You don't need to spend hours learning how it works. It's pretty intuitive. The app is one of the top-rated apps for hours of service. We've averaged a 4.6 star rating from users on both platforms. And if you're not using it already, download it to give it a try for free. Visit the Apple iTunes Store or Google Play and search for BigRoad. If you or your drivers are already using the BigRoad mobile app, we suggest that you give our BigRoad web app a try. It's our real-time operations management tool that helps administrators better manage their operations while getting on the road to ELD compliance. From the BigRoad web app, you're able to see where all of your assets are on the map and monitor hours of service compliance. You can easily see when you or a driver is at risk for a violation and communicate with real-time messages. You can also use the web app to store all of your logs and documents and have them readily available in case of an audit. Both the BigRoad web app and our BigRoad mobile app connect with our DashLink ELD. So then finally, the solution that everyone should get onto if they need an ELD compliant solution is our DashLink ELD. So DashLink is really the easiest and most affordable ELD mandate compliant solution that you're going to find in the market today. And for a limited time, we're making it even more affordable by giving away 3 extra months free when you purchase it now on a 1-year term paid up front. So that's 15 months for the price of 12. So with no upfront hardware cost and a low monthly fee, you can have the tools you need to comply with the ELD mandate without worrying about what it's going to cost you. So you simply plug the DashLink device into the ECM of the truck, pair it with your BigRoad mobile app via Bluetooth, and you're ready to go. There's no expensive installation or permanent changes to your truck required. The device pulls the information directly from the computer within the truck so that you can focus on driving rather than logging. And as we covered, if you already have a DashLink in place, you can run it as an AOBRD until December 16th, 2019. If before that you want to go fully ELD compliant, you do that with a simple software update from inside the app, so you control when you want to transition to ELDs. And in addition to offering new customers 3 months free when they buy a DashLink, another program that we're running right now to help truckers put a little more money in their pockets is the BigRoad referral program. It's the first referral program to launch in the industry, and it's really taken off. Some of our top referrers have already earned thousands of dollars using the BigRoad referral program, and they're still going. It's a great way to earn a little bit of money while recommending your friends to a trusted solution. So many of our customers were already telling their friends that they should get on BigRoad if they need an ELD compliance solution. So we wanted to create a way to reward them for their effort and encourage more people to tell their friends about the great solution that we have to offer. So the way it works is simple. You can sign up to participate in the program by visiting bigroad.com/rewards. The address is up on the screen there. And then refer your friends with your unique tracking code. If a friend that you referred purchases BigRoad's DashLink ELD through your link, you'll get a $75 reward and they'll get a $25 reward. So again, to learn more and sign up to participate, check out bigroad.com/rewards. So that wraps up our transitioning to from AOBRDs to ELDs webinar. If you have questions that weren't answered during the webinar, please enter them into the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. While we're waiting for those to come in, a couple of things that you can take advantage of. If you're interested in learning more about BigRoad solutions, here's some ways that you can. You can download the BigRoad mobile app and give our free electronic logbook a try. You can do so by searching for BigRoad in the Google Play or iTunes stores or visiting bigroad.com. If you're ready to achieve compliance now, we've made it really easy for you to purchase the DashLink online without having to speak to a rep. You can just fill out the form online at www.getmyeld.com. And that address is up on the screen there as well. If you'd prefer to speak to somebody over the phone who can place the order for you, just call 1-866-350-1396 to buy directly now and get your 3 months free. Okay, so now we're going to dive into questions. I also have Julie joining us from our training team so that she can help answer some of the questions. So the first question that I have is, when will you be implementing the full MAP 21 ELD regulations into your app? How long can I run it as an AOBRD? So our DashLink is currently fully compliant and has been certified with the FMCSA as an ELD. If you're currently plugged in as an AOBRD, you can continue to run it that way until December 16th, 2019. Next question is, can I continue to use the BigRoad mobile app as it exists today after today without penalty from the DOT. So no, in order to comply with the ELD mandate, you need an engine-connected device. ELDs and AOBRDs are engine-connected, as we went over. If you have an AOBRD plugged in before today, you can continue to use it for 2 more years. However, there is a common misconception that this 2-year AOBRD extension means that people can just use an electronic logbook app in order to comply with the mandate. An electronic logbook app is essentially the same thing as paper logs, but in electronic format. Whereas an engine-connected device, like an ELD or an AOBRD, connects to a vehicle's ECM to automatically pull that data and record the logs for you. The next question is, do we charge for installation? So installing BigRoad's DashLink can be done by you or your drivers for free. It only takes a couple of minutes. You just need to plug the device into your vehicle's diagnostic port and connect it to the BigRoad mobile app using Bluetooth. How does split sleeper berth work? To qualify for the split sleeper berth provision, you need to be in sleeper berth for at least 8 hours, but no more than 10. This rest period will not count as part of the 14 hours of on-duty time, and then you'll need a separate rest period that must be at least 2 consecutive hours, but less than 10 hours long. So this period can be off-duty, in sleeper, or in combination of both. It does count as part of your 14 hours, and it doesn't matter which rest period you take first, but after your second rest period has been completed, you'll have your new hours available. How does this affect those of us that drive pickups? So if you drive a pickup and need to be compliant with the mandate, there are several different connector types depending on your vehicle. Our OBD2, or 16-pin connector, is generally the one that's used for lighter service vehicles, so you simply plug the device into the diagnostic port and connect it using Bluetooth. So if you're currently required to record a record of duty status in your truck, you'll probably need to run an ELD unless you qualify for an exemption. Are records and logs from the BigRoad web app when using DashLink downloadable by the police officer while the driver is out on the road? So you can transfer your logs electronically to an inspecting officer via email, or you can fax or print them, or the officer can view your logs directly on your phone or tablet. This is a requirement by the FMCSA for conducting an ELD inspection at roadside. If after December 18th, for technical reasons, the AOBRD needs to be replaced, can it be replaced with the AOBRD or should it be an ELD? So if you're using an AOBRD and it breaks, it needs to be replaced by an ELD. Is that right, Julie? Yes. So if you're using an AOBRD and it breaks, you can't go out and get a new AOBRD. It needs to be replaced with an ELD. So this is a requirement of the FMCSA.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So with the ELD mandate, I've heard that trucks manufactured before December 1999 do not need one. Then I've heard that it goes off the 10th digit of your VIN number. Am I exempt? So the pre-model year 2000 exemption applies to your vehicle's engine and not the body of the truck. So trucks that have an engine model year of 1999 or prior are exempt from the mandate. That's because the technology doesn't work with older mechanical engines. It would be too costly for the FMCSA to expect those drivers to replace their vehicles or engines in order to install ELDs. If I have problems with the ELD equipment, how long do you have to get it fixed? So if your device malfunctions under the ELD mandate, you have 8 days to have it repaired or replaced. In the meantime, you should keep using paper logs or an electronic logbook app. The FMCSA requires that ELD-compliant vehicles have at least 8 days of paper logs in their vehicles for this reason. If you need more time, you need to file your issue with an FMCSA state administrator. So more information on what to do in these scenarios is available on our ELD driver card, and I'll link to this on the blog. How much does the DashLink ELD cost? So it's $19.50 a month per unit, or $234 for the year for an owner-operator, or $25 per month per unit, or $300 a year for a driver in a fleet of 3 or more. If you purchase the year up front, we're doing the 3-month free promotion, so you'll get 15 months instead of 12. What are the exemptions? If you are not currently required to produce a record of duty status, then you likely don't need to comply with the ELD mandate. But if you do, then you probably do need to comply. There are a few exemptions. For example, drivers operating vehicles with an engine model year of 1999 or prior, short-haul drivers who aren't currently required to keep logs, drivers who only need to create records of duty status less than 8 times in a moving 30-day period and never go beyond this, And finally, drivers who conduct drive-away, tow-away operations, where the vehicle being driven is part of the shipment or the vehicle transported as a motorhome or recreational vehicle with one or more sets of wheels on the surface of the roadway. A complete breakdown of ELD exemptions can be found on our blog, and I'll provide a link to this in the recap. The next question is, if my drivers need to switch between multiple trucks running an ELD, how should this be done in the BigRoad mobile app? So before a driver starts their shift, they just need to make sure that they are signed into the correct vehicle. They go to the menu button, select switch trucks, and select the correct vehicle. It's that easy. Please explain the details of how you would handle the ELD mandated unidentified driver requirements. So under the ELD mandate, every driving event needs to be assigned to a driver. If a driver is in motion without the driver signing in, the ELD must have a visual or audible and visual warning to drivers to get them to sign into the ELD. An unidentified driving event can be assigned to a driver by a carrier, but that driver must approve this by adding his or her electronic signature. We've created a video and a one-page guide that walks you through this, which I'll link to in the blog. Does BigRoad attach to the truck or just the driver? Will each driver have to plug in all of the fleet's information at once and then it will be saved? Will it automatically GPS your location, or is that manually typed in? And is there an option on the application for when if the DOT needs to view the driver's logs, or is having a printer in the cab a must? So the ELD is attached to the vehicle, not to a specific driver. Multiple drivers can drive one truck with one ELD. They just need to log into their BigRoad mobile app and select the correct truck. Information is automatically saved for the driver once initially set up. And the device will record the vehicle's location through GPS. The next part of that question is, an inspecting officer can view the driver's logs right on his smartphone or tablet. They can also be transferred through email or fax. Some people do prefer to keep an in-cab printer, but under the ELD mandate, it's not required for you to print out your logs. How could we use BigRoad as a timekeeping piece? Is it compatible or currently integrated with any payroll systems? So no, BigRoad is not currently integrated with any payroll systems, but fleet administrators can see a driver's activity on the BigRoad web app to see how far they drove that day and what time. Many fleets who are not required to keep logs legally do it as a time tracking system. The administrator can access their driver through the BigRoad web app and export all of the information in an easy-to-read export file. If a driver's off-duty and he's asked to move his truck for any reason, does this yard move interfere with his off-duty time? Well, if you're using an AOBRD, you can use the yard move without it affecting your drive time. But if you run it as an ELD, you'll need to be kicked into on duty in order to use yard move. So this is an FMCSA requirement. When I go on vacation and somebody uses my truck without my permission, and that person logs out of the system, can I still see if my truck was moved? Well, if your truck was moved and nobody was signed in, you'll have unaccounted for miles when you sign back in. So you'll know that then that your truck was used. You'll need to reject these unassigned miles and potentially assign them to whoever drove your vehicle. And in AOBRD, can we change the vehicle motion threshold? No, unfortunately, that's not adjustable. Once your vehicle is moving more than 5 miles an hour, you will automatically be placed into on-duty driving unless you set your duty status to personal command to your yard move, which you can use off-duty when you're running with an AOBRD. 5 miles per hour is the maximum speed that you're allowed to move as dictated by the FMCSA. Many providers have actually set this lower, and we've left it at 5. So I have one truck. Do I need anything extra if I take a day or two off and someone else drives? So you'll need an extra license for your other driver if they're going to be running the truck as an ELD and following the ELD rules. That driver will need to sign into your vehicle using the BigRoad mobile app when he or she drives. Next question is, we are currently installing the Fleet Complete MGS 700 trackers units with BigRoad integrated together. Is this not ELD compliant? The MGS 700 is your ELD, so yes, your solution is ELD compliant. The next question is, when you cross the border to Canada at 14 hours and 11-hour USA limit, how many hours can you still work and drive? So if you're crossing from Canada into the US and you're at 14 hours of drive time, you're over your drive time in the US, so legally you shouldn't be driving. When you cross, you'll need to start following US rules, meaning you'll need to be under your 11 hours. So you just need to make sure that you're pre-planning for any border crossings. So with an ELD tied to the truck, some systems allowed 1.5 miles before logging driving, and assuming that yours is not, what will it do when you're sitting in the staging area, then called to the dock? Shouldn't that be on duty, not driving? For the same basis, the ELD, if it's tied to the truck, what about when the truck is in the shop or a mechanic takes it for a road test? How do those miles get logged? So in these cases, you can use your personal conveyance and yard move functionality. The FMCSA requires even these small moves are tracked. How does team driving work for mileage and inspections? So each driver needs to have their own BigRoad mobile app login. Each would pair one dash link in the vehicle. Each would pair to the one dash link in the vehicle. You don't need 2 dash links. And we do have a complete guide to walk you through this with pictures in our resources portal under materials. It's called the Dash Link Team Driving Guide, and I'll link to this in the follow-up. Sorry. I have one truck that gets excessive unknown miles. He does not log out and drive. Other trucks get some, but not nearly the amount this one driver does. What should I do? So this sounds like a driver training issue. The driver is still required to do some tasks, and we can sync you up with our training team after the webinar or send you links to training videos. What do you do when your device will not connect to the ELD and you are ready to drive? So that's why we have the ELD driver card in the event of a malfunction. So you should follow the ELD driver card protocol. If you're not able to get in touch with a support person who can help you fix the issue on the dash link, then you'll need to keep paper logs until it gets up and running again. So there's a few questions here that are pretty technical and related specifically to individuals. We do have weekly, or in this week we have daily training webinars that I recommend you attend for those ones. And then we also have some questions that were asked on the spot here that I'm going to have Julie help me with. There's a question here. We purchased the units and 95% of them got installed. The ones that did not go into the truck today, sorry, can they still be AOBRD or do they have to be ELD? Well, according to the ELD mandate, to use an AOBRD, it had to be installed before today. So they should be up and running as ELDs from today onward. Next question.
Okay, so there's a question here about yard move. Why do my drivers tell me that it changes to driving as soon as he starts moving under AOBRD with yard moves allowed? So this is just telling me on that duty status wheel on the main screen of the app, your drivers aren't completely launching yard move. They need to make sure that they see a little window that populates in the app, and it'll count down how much distance they have left within the yard move. So as long as they're putting themselves into yard move, the system will not put them on the drive line. Another question here. My driver entered his location regarding please enable GPS receiver. He is still seeing the warning. What does he need to do to get rid of the warning? So when your drivers are seeing that within the app, that means that they have the location service off in the settings of their device. So whether they're using their phone or their tablet, they need to make sure that they have the GPS turned on within the actual device.
Another question about the DashLink hasn't been connected yet. Will it need to be an AOBRD or an ELD? So again, you should be turning on ELD functionality if you're installing it today or beyond. Only truckers do it for motor coach drivers as well. So anybody that needs to comply with the ELD mandate, and they're currently required to produce records of duty status, our device will help them comply with that. So drive time is one of those things that's pretty sticky. You can make some adjustments to it from an administrator portal in the back end, but they all need to be annotated. So this one says that since Sunday, we've been unable to use this feature. There is a bug that's not allowing people to edit, but it should be fixed by tomorrow. The team's working on it now. So if you have already been installed and you're using an AOBRD, that functionality should return to you. If you purchase AOBRDs in October, but they have not activated them, you have not activated them yet. If we activate them now, will they be considered AOBRDs or ELDs? So it's about when you install them and not when you purchase them. So again, if you install it today and beyond, it's an ELD. How should a driver handle time spent away from the truck, off duty or on vacation? So he'll just, the GPS on the phone is recording the location of the phone and not the truck. That's only if he's still signed into the app. So he'll just need to make sure that he's signed out of the BigRoad mobile app if he's not trucking. Otherwise, it will record his information. Will location on a DashLink ELD be noted even if you're in an area with no cellular data? So it's going to continue to record that information onto the DashLink, even though you might not see it pop up right away on the mobile app. But the next time that you connect to cellular data, it'll fill in the gaps for you there.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Is personal conveyance strictly when the driver is bobtailing, or can they have an empty trailer in tow? So it's supposed to be when you're unladen and driving for personal use. So you can't have a trailer.
There's a question here about Bluetooth. You're having some connectivity issues. What I would suggest is just to toggle on and off the Bluetooth within the settings of the phone. Also, make sure on the website that you've gone in and you've selected that truck and that you've turned on either AOBRD or ELD. You have to provision the truck not only through the app, but through the website as well.
So starting today, drivers don't need to run paper logs if they have the device installed, but they need to have a logbook with them in case the app goes down or they're not in service. Is that correct? Yeah, in the event of a device malfunction, you should have minimum 8 days or 14 if you're driving in Canada of blank logs with you, so that if the device goes down, you can still log. If you're using the app, you can also use the app during that time. If you use the DashLink now, how do we use AOBRD? If you installed it before today, you should be up and running as an AOBRD right now. If you didn't install it until today, then you should have it up and running as an ELD. There's not really an option to keep using it as an AOBRD unless you're exempt and you're just using it to make your jobs a little bit easier. And then you can just keep running it as an AOBRD. So I've plugged in and linked my DashLink to the phone app since the 16th. Does this mean I'm good for the AOBRD and able to use it as an AOBRD for the next few years? Yes, it does. So if you already have your device installed, you can keep using it as an AOBRD until December 16th, 2019.
There's another question here. What do I give my accountant? Can I print logs off my phone? So you have two options. You can send logs. You can only send 14 days at a time within the actual app. But if you sign in onto the website, app.bigroad.com, you'll have access to every single log that you have created, and you can send those over in bulk quantities as well.
The next question is, do dump trucks fall under the ELD mandate? And the answer is yes. If you're currently required to keep logs, then you'll likely need to have an ELD unless you fall under one of the exemptions that we mentioned earlier in the webinar. How can I move the AOBRD to a different or to another truck? So it's plug and play. So you can just plug it into another vehicle, make sure that vehicle is registered on the back end, and you can use it in a different truck. Sorry, I'm just looking through the questions now. So this one is asking, could we please repeat the requirements if the sensor fails? We have an AOBRD, and I assume the rule is the same for the AOBRD and ELD. So again, this is the 8-day paper log backup. So if anything in your device is malfunctioning, then you need to keep your logs in another way. So either with an electronic logging device or either with electronic logbook app or with paper logs.
And I just want to touch base on that too. So we do like our most common technical support issue would be a sensor failure on the log. Typically, this is caused by the dash link becoming loose or dirt getting in between the connections. So always confirming that there's a solid connection between the dash link cable and the ECM port. That's one way to fix a sensor failure. If that doesn't fix it, call into our tech support. If they can't have it fixed for you, that's when that 8-day ruling would apply. So there's another question here. If you're, does the device use DashLink need to have a data plan? So you can connect via Wi-Fi. Obviously, we do recommend that you do have a data plan just so the logs and locations are uploading in real time. But devices, they can connect via Wi-Fi. The only difference there, any administrators on the admin portal, they'll see your logs just a little bit delayed until you do get internet connections. So there's another question here. I have 2 devices. How do I add name of a driver to the device? So you can have 2 drivers connect to the dash link. You just can't have it connected at the same time. So if you're, say for instance, in team driving, you can have driver A sign into the app, record their day. Once they're done, they need to sign out of that truck, sign out of the app. Driver B then signs into the truck, and the system will connect with that dash link that's installed.
How often can you use the personal conveyance function? There's no limit to how often you can use the personal conveyance function, but it's recorded. So if you're using it for, you know, an extended period of time, an inspecting officer will be able to see when you've used it, and you might have a little bit of explaining to do if you've used it for too long.
That's exactly it, Nicole. I mean, you can bobtail home at the end of your shift using personal conveyance, but if DOT officer sees that you've been using personal conveyance for 6 to 8 hours, they're obviously going to question that. So it's all DOT discretion, right? So you don't want to push the limits with personal conveyance.
Do we have to register with you all to make it work? Having trouble getting the phone to connect. So I think this goes back to what Julie was saying earlier about having to register the devices in the web app before you start using them. So all that information is there in your installation guide. So start with that, and that should sort you out.
Yep.
Can multiple drivers use the same tablet? So can drivers log in and out of the tablet? Yes, you can log out and then sign in as a different driver. So again, some of these are kind of more support-driven questions. We're going to put the answers to all of these on the blog tomorrow with links to any relevant materials. But I do encourage you guys to join the training webinars this week if you have any more questions. And also, you can call or email in support if you're having a specific device-related question. Our drivers are no longer able to edit their logs. So again, this is the bug that is supposed to be fixed by tomorrow. They're working on it now, and you'll have that editability back if you're still using an AOBRD.
So there's a question here. If the driver is waiting on being loaded and it takes longer than expected and our clock is ticking, will there be any way we can get around it? Unfortunately, no, that'll still go against their on-duty time, as they are on duty and they are dispatched as well. If, you know, the loading time is going to take more than 30 minutes, your drivers could potentially take advantage of that 30-minute break during that time. But other than that, it will go against the on-duty time. Another question here, why are some of my driver logs not uploading on the website? Just take a look at the last contact. The last contact is the last time the server has seen any information from your driver's device. They could be going through a dead zone, or if they're connecting via Wi-Fi, it will be a little bit delayed until they make an internet connection.
If we have a GPS in our trucks, is that considered an AOBRD? No. It needs to be an engine connected, like hours of service recording device. The GPS alone isn't going to or automatically create your logs for you, so it's not a compliance option. I have a new admin that will be added soon. Where can she go and find information? So our resources portal is a really great place to start. Again, it's on BigRoad.com. It's just the resources tab at the top. There's some ELD materials there. There's lots of training videos there. You should be able to get all the information you need from that portal there. To what extent can a driver make edits? So drivers can't make edits on their logs once they've been recorded. Any edits need to be made by an administrator on the back end. If there's a malfunction, you need to keep a payroll log. Can you go into the ELD and enter that information later on?
I guess there would be an option for you to go in and enter it in later on. It wouldn't be an engine connected log. Inspectors and yourself would see the difference between the engine connected log and a log that was just entered manually at that time.
I was under the understanding that if you purchase extra dash links, you can use them as an AOBRD before December 18th. No, you're not supposed to. They're supposed to be grandfathered in to the truck that they're being used on. And also they need to be installed before the 18th in order to keep using them as an AOBRD. Like stockpiling them and just hanging on to them isn't what's being specified by the FMCSA rule there. You have to sign the log before you can edit them.
In the app, you don't need to. Drivers can make changes to any on-duty, off-duty segments prior to signing. But for a safety manager on the administrator side, a signature would need to be applied in order for them to make any changes. And there's another question here. I don't see the yard move option in duty statuses on my app. That means that you just haven't turned it on the website. So log into app.bigroad.com. Under the fleet tab, edit your settings and turn on yard move. There's another question here. Does DashLink need internet in order to work? So the DashLink itself does not need internet. The device can connect via Wi-Fi, but we do recommend that you have a data plan. So the logs update on the web app.
Okay, so that looks like that's it for questions for today. If you have more questions, you can always email them into marketing@bigroad.com, or if you have technical support-related questions, you can email support@bigroad.com. And again, I encourage you to join our training webinars this week if you're still having questions about how to get yourselves up and running. All of the questions that we answered here will be recorded and put up on the BigRoad blog tomorrow. I'll send you a link to the blog post as well as answers to questions with links attached. Okay, thanks very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.